What's going on, Bengals fans? Stone Shields on hand for another edition of Bengals Breakdown. And coming up on today's show, we're going to be talking about the latest on Bengals wide receiver Tee Higgins. Obviously, Cincinnati, their front office, have a lot of things that they need to get figured out as far as Tee Higgins and his status with the organization is going forward. So we're going to be discussing Tee Higgins, some new updates from our guy James Rapine, who covers the Bengals for Sports Illustrated, as well as all Bengals, Cincinnati Bengals talk on YouTube as well. Also, a note about the Bengals defensive coordinator search. There was a name that was mentioned on yesterday's show that is already essentially out of the running, so we will be talking about that. As well as Dane Brugler. It is that time of year, folks. Dane Brugler has released his mock draft, and he's got 2 picks for the Cincinnati Bengals. One, of course, in round 1 and one in round 2. We're going to be talking about who Dane Brugler mocked to Cincinnati in his latest 2025 NFL draft. Before we dive into all that, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button if you have not done so already. As you can see, we are on the doorstep of hitting 16,000 subscribers here at our channel. Only need 37 from this video in order to make that happen. So help us out, help yourself out. We will be here all off season long. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/BengalsTV. First up, got to spend some time talking about Tee Higgins, all the latest news surrounding the Bengals wide receiver and his future with the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, Cincinnati has a decision to make in terms of whether or not Tee Higgins will be back in 2025 or not. Look, Cincinnati and Higgins can agree on an extension at any given point throughout this offseason. They could do it tomorrow, and they can do it in the many months that the offseason is as well. They also can tag Tee Higgins for a second time for $26.1 million for 1 season of work. Kind of feel like that's going to be the route that Cincinnati ultimately ends up going down. We'll spend some time talking about that as well. Keep in mind the franchise tag deadline is March 5th. It might be March 4th, but it is early March when that decision needs to be made for the Cincinnati Bengals if, in fact, they are going to tag him. Keep in mind, if they tag him, they can still negotiate beyond that. Higgins, of course, fired his agent in the middle of the season and now shares the same agent as Ja'Marr Chase. So there is hope that Higgins is going to be able to remain a Cincinnati Bengal for the long term. That kind of changed on a dime because I went into the 2024 season kind of expecting it to be the final run for Tee Higgins. But then after the season that he had and kind of the success that they had offensively when both him and Ja'Marr Chase were out there on the football field with Joe Burrow, and of course the comments that Burrow made in several press conferences basically letting the organization know, hey, we need this guy. And as your franchise quarterback, I'm telling you that we need this guy. We'll see if the Cincinnati Bengals front office can pull through, make these things happen, and get Tee Higgins locked up for the future. Leads us to the pinned comment of today's video. Will Tee Higgins be a Cincinnati Bengal in 2025? Type Y for yes or N for no in the comments section. If that ad comes here on YouTube, that's totally fine. Take advantage of it. Get down in the comments. Let us know what you think. All right, we talked about Wink Martindale getting linked to the Cincinnati Bengals job, but we talked about in yesterday's show how I would be shocked, essentially, if Martindale did indeed end up being the Bengals defensive coordinator. And Paul Dehner Jr., our guy over at The Athletic, he put the kibosh on that. He said, considering the unfriendly history between the Bengals and Wink Martindale, obviously we're all very familiar with that during his time in Baltimore and some of the comments he made. It's kind of funny they somehow got caught up in the conversation about him for D.C. For clarity, Martindale is not part of the Bengals D.C. search, nor was he ever under consideration. Martindale, of course, is the current defensive coordinator for the Michigan Wolverines. Longtime Baltimore Ravens coach, is well respected around the league, but him and the Bengals have never really gotten along. Look, Zac Taylor is not going to be in a spot where he's going to bring in somebody from an AFC North rival, especially considering how badly he needs to win in the division and how much, as a, AFC North team, you kind of despise the rest of your division, right? And the comments that he made about Joe Burrow a couple of years ago saying, let's not give him his gold jacket yet. Look, you don't take shots at number 9 and expect to come on over here and get a job. That just absolutely isn't happening. Glad that Dehner put the kibosh on this. Not that I was worried about him coming here, but good to know that officially will not be something that transpires for Cincinnati. Around the corner, we will talk about Dane Brugler's first 2 draft picks. Round 1 pick and a round 2 pick for the Cincinnati Bengals. We will discuss who he mocked to Cincinnati and my thoughts on those selections here in a moment. But first, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Game Time because today's show is presented by Game Time. Look, Game Time is a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Also, they've got some really good postseason deals. I always say the divisional round is the best weekend of the year for professional football. Not all the games are sold out, so we really encourage you guys to get over to Game Time and check out some of those ticket deals. Also, from a more local standpoint, Cincinnati Bearcats basketball, they certainly are off to a rough start, so looking for that first Big 12 win. I was at the game this past Saturday against Kansas. How did I get my tickets? Yep, you guessed it, Game Time. And, of course, spring training around the corner for the Cincinnati Reds. Hopefully they have a better season than the Cincinnati Bengals. I know I am hanging onto some optimism that will be the case, but we will see. My two favorite features on Game Time, the seat views. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy with Game Time. Secondly, the event cancellation protection. You're going to a concert, the artist cancels on you, that's totally fine. Game Time is not going to hose you. They're going to get you your money back. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create an account, redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Here is who Dane Brugler mocked to the Cincinnati Bengals in round 1 of the 2025 NFL Draft. That, of course, is Mykel Williams, an edge rusher from the University of Georgia. The Bengals obviously need improvement at that position, right? It was Trey Henderson or nothing in 2023. It was Trey Henderson or nothing once again in 2024, which absolutely cannot happen in 2025. That position needs to get cleared up. So more thoughts on that in a moment. But first, let's get into what exactly Dane Brugler had to say about the Bengals taking Mykel Williams at that number 17 overall position. He said last year the Bengals drafted a toolsy offensive lineman from Georgia in the first round, Amarius Mims. They flip to the other side of the ball and do it again in this mock. Williams looked like a future top 10 pick as a freshman, but he didn't quite reach dominant status over his 3 seasons in Athens. The talent, however, is there for him to grow into a game wrecker off the edge. Another opportunity for you guys to get involved with our show here at Bengals Breakdown. Would you draft Mykel Williams at 17 overall? Let me know in the comment section. Type 1 for yes or 0 for no. Williams is a guy that, as Brugler mentioned, coming into college, he really was a highly touted guy, and he really was able to make a massive impact for the Bulldogs as a freshman as they were able to win that national title, and he really was able to do some good things for them. Now, as Brugler mentioned, he really wasn't able to pick up a ton of speed, particularly this year in 2024 because some of the injuries that he was battling. It felt like he was kind of hurt for the majority of the season, but the upside with a guy like Mykel Williams is absolutely there. There is no doubt about that. He looks like an NFL player when you look at him, and you're just kind of rolling the dice that he will be able to develop into that star NFL player. I think a lot of people expected him to be a top 10 pick. Ultimately isn't going to be a top 10 pick, but he's still going to be a first-round pick. There's absolutely no doubt about it. The key for him is getting a defensive coordinator that is going to be able to develop him into a star player. And that, of course, is something Cincinnati is currently trying to figure out. This next hire, we've said it so much here on Bengals Breakdown, this DC hire for Zac Taylor, as well as the offensive line coach hire, are absolutely massive. Have to hit them out of the park, because if you take a guy like Williams, the talent is there, the ability is there. He looks like an NFL guy, but somebody is going to have to kind of hold his hand through the process and help develop him into that caliber of player. As far as the position goes at defensive end, I would love to take a guy at that position in the first round. At that 17 overall spot, I'm very much of the mindset, hey, let's take the best defensive player available. If Malachi Starks happens to slip down there, heck yeah, you take him at 17. He'll probably be gone, though, in the top 10 or 12. But taking a look at this defensive end depth chart here, Henderson, hopefully you can figure some things out this offseason, get him the extension he is seeking. Sam Hubbard, we're going to talk about him in a later video as far as his kind of, just the situation with the Cincinnati Bengals. might not be back in 2025, which stings. Osai's a guy they could move off of as well. Myles Murphy, you whiffed on him in the first round. Cedric Johnson, a late round pick last year, hopefully can develop into a solid player for you, but you really need somebody to come into that room and be able to help immediately, and Mykel Williams certainly could be a guy like that. I would like this pick personally if I am the Cincinnati Bengals. Brugler also mentioned a round 2 pick for the Cincinnati Bengals. That is Marcus Bowe at that 49th overall spot, an interior offensive lineman from Purdue. I also like this pick quite a bit. I think you had to go defense in the first round, and that second round, you got to take the best interior offensive lineman available. Kappa, probably going to get cut, right? And Volson, you don't want him to be out there starting as well. That interior of your offensive line needs to be completely retooled when you're talking about next season. Cody Ford's a guy that also could be gone. We'll see if they bring him back or not, but you have to find a way to clean up the interior of your offensive line. It's been bad for a really long time, and Joe Burrow has continued to be brilliant despite how bad that offensive line is. You got to bring in a young guy here that can develop into a solid player for your franchise. Again, that offensive line coach, that's going to be a massive hire for Cincinnati. We'll see if Zac Taylor can execute there, but I really like this Bowe kid playing in the Big Ten, played against some really solid competition. As you can see there, these numbers from PFF did allow several hurries, but also really quality in the run game there with a block grade of 76.4. Bengals just have to be all types of better at the interior of their offensive line. Got to protect better from that standpoint, and also got to be able to run the ball in between the tackles better as well in 2025. If you made it to the end of our video, we appreciate you. You are a real one for making that happen. Give us a like on today's show if you have not done so already.